Alright guys, today we are going to be reacting to Andrew Wilson's school Marxist Feminist on why communism makes no sense. Jump in, guys.
Well, if we're going to talk about then kind of like the dynamics of capitalism, I do think we need to acknowledge that obviously capitalism needs to create a poor class in order to exploit their labor. So, I mean, if you're poor and you only have X amount of dollars.
So does communism.
What do you mean?
Well, so do you agree with me when it comes to class that there's a such thing as social class?
I guess it would mean I guess we need to know what you define as social class.
Academics versus laborers.
Sure, like prestige. Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it going to be still in a communist society laborers to do most of the work?
Yes, but they would have access to they would own the means of production to where essentially they would have access to the materials in order to execute the labor.
Yeah.
Whereas the capitalist has access to that, so they're able to steal the surplus value.
Yeah, but then you would have academics still who would have prestigious positions of being able to determine where the things, which they now own the means of production, need to go. And so those people necessarily end up with authority. There's no way around it.
I mean, I don't think like authority and class are
well, let us
necessarily
pretend for a second that
like intertwined.
Let's find out.
But
let's find out. Hang on.
sorry.
Let me test this real quick before I let you move on.
I just wanted to go back to the original point.
Yeah,
No.
Just real quick. This whole table is communism, let's say. Okay. And within the confines of this whole table, every little individual industry, the workers own the means of production.
Okay.
Okay. They're all producing it all. Who gets to decide where it goes?
Well, that would be the proletariat.
The proletariat decides where it goes?
Yeah.
How?
Through democracy, through voting.
Okay. So government.
Well, again, it would depend on what you mean by government. It would just be
People in a governing body who make decisions on behalf of this they're democratically elected.
Sure, I
figures.
just want to make the delineation that it wouldn't be considered a state.
Okay, but it's a government.
Sure.
Yeah. And so necessarily the people in the government who are making the decision on where these resources go, those people are necessarily going to have to be imbued with authority.
Okay, yeah.
So if that is the case, you're always going to end up with a class society because the people who have authority are always going to have prestige.
Well, but it's the working people that have the authority.
No. They don't
That's
get
what the proletariat is.
They don't get to determine where their resources get allocated. Somebody has to determine that. Whoever determines where the allocation of the resources go, they're the ones who are going to have
That would be
authority.
the community. The community would have the authority.
So what if the community votes then to keep all of the resources for themselves and not share them with anybody?
Okay.
They don't have to share them?
Correct. I mean, obviously, then
That sounds an awful lot like capitalism.
how would that be capitalism?
Well, I mean, what's the difference right now between a company who has a bunch of employees and they all make a whole bunch of products and they sell all those products and they keep all the money for themselves? What's the difference between that and a group of people who own the means of production, the company, they own the company, and they
because
sell
it's
a bunch
the
of
workers
products?
keeping their own product, not the capitalist.
Workers are, what do you mean? Workers keep their product now, money.
No, they don't.
They keep a paycheck,
Yeah.
right?
No, the product is, so if I'm a worker and my labor makes $1,000 worth of profit,
Yeah.
The capitalist pays me my hourly wage, which could be, let's just say for the day, $100, and then he keeps the 900. But in, that's like an example within capitalists, but within communists, like the workers own the means of production, which means there's no capitalist who owns the factory, who owns the material.
But who's going to determine who goes who? This is the thing that they don't want to really get into. Who determines the last word? You need to have somebody to again dictate. And we know how a lot of these communist systems work. It always end up with people on the top, man. Always.
How do
The
these
workers
people
do.
who work in these factories allocate the resources amongst each other?
Amongst each other, well, you can have democratically elected leaders, or you can have votes
So
with,
these
with the
democratically
workers.
elected leaders could democratically say these people over here do more work than me, they get more money?
Well, I mean, under communism, ideally, it would be moneyless, but I think it would just be determined like
So if
you work for if you work and produce $1,000, you get $1,000.
So if your production makes $1,000, you get $1,000. Can you spend that $1,000 on getting a bigger house than somebody else?
Well, again, if we're talking about like true communists, it's moneyless. So this kind of example isn't really relative.
Yeah,
to
but
like the actual
I'm failing to
principle.
see a single example you're giving me where I can't be like, well, it sounds like we could have class off of this immediately.
Well, I think class and prestige or kinship are different concepts.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing, but I'm
Okay.
talking right now about class. So it just sounds to me like if you have more resources, you would be set in a class above other people who don't have
Yep.
as much resources. That would be class, right?
Well, no, because you would have
100%.
access to the means of productions of resources.
Yeah, well, you'd have access to the means of production at least where you work for resources.
Right. I mean, you could go to a like.
But you
another
still need
company.
fruit. Then you still need bananas, right? You still need steak.
Sure,
You need
yeah.
all of these
Yep.
things. You need,
Yeah. So
you
like,
need lumber. So
like,
somebody's
for
going to have to
example, if,
decide
like,
where all that
Brazil-
shit goes, right? So that
Sure.
everybody gets
so then
it.
it would be the community and I think you can do that through
Yo,
reason, through practicality.
man, wow, this is crazy, man. Females are not capable. I should not be saying capable, but there's something about them they cannot understand. You need people to delegate to make sure these things move. They think that we're gonna go all to vote. Remember the video that reacted to when females and men were in different islands, and females was they couldn't just elect a leader to delegate. They almost were so close to get deleted, and they still wanted to just get in circles and let's just have a ball. Like, bro, this is not how things work. This is not how things work, man. Innate in us, especially men. We need a leader. We need a leader. We need a leader. And sometimes it's okay if some people want to be the leader. They want to fight for it. I'm okay with that. I'm simply okay with that. But this mindset that there should be no leaders, no nothing, and somehow through democratic process we're going to decide. So first of all, who in the hell is going to just get all people together to make that democratic process true? There has to be a leader. It's just incapable of seeing that, man. It's crazy.
Well, you can't have, you couldn't have 300 million people voting on where each individual piece of lumber
Well, it would
went.
be like individual sects of community. So obviously, like let's just say, for example, like Brazil is exporting coffee.
Yeah.
And they have a really bad coffee season.
Yeah.
Then, maybe exports don't go to countries that are farther distance, just ones that are closer because there's only so much amount that
do it
someone
right
can
now.
get. And then, maybe
What?
someone.
That makes no sense.
What do you mean?
Well, you're still going to have central people in a central authority who would have to determine where, because when you think about resources, like just look around this room, there's cameras and monitors and plates and cups. And I mean, it's an enormous amount of resources just looking around that all need to be allocated all over the place in equity.
I mean, depending. It doesn't necessarily need to be equity based on someone's need, based on necessity.
Well,
based
everybody
on
needs
need.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to.
So I don't necessarily
to have
say
a
there would be one
determiner.
factory in Texas that would produce all the plates within the country. You can
Yeah.
have multiple industries based in certain
But
communities.
somebody's going to have to determine where all the plates in the country go. How many does Houston
Well, the
get?
community can determine.
How?
Oh,
How do you
how?
determine that?
How
How would the community?
how the community determines that? How? Through a leader. It comes down to the leader. That's it, guys.
Based on
Unity.
need.
So then they're going to vote on each individual shipment going to every node of the United States?
Well, again, I don't know why we're just saying that one place makes plates.
Well, that was your example.
No, I said there can be sects of.
Oh, I agree. There could be. That's even
Yeah.
worse. That just makes the problem even more complex.
How?
Well, now there's already plates going to Houston. They don't need them. What do we do with our plates? We
Throw
send
them
them
away.
over here to this guy.
Yeah, wherever there's a need. I mean, I don't know why we would produce
but
something that we don't
somebody's
need.
going to make the determination of the need.
Okay.
That's the
I
point.
don't necessarily think
So there's
that
going to be
that's-
what are called middlemen. Middlemen who
Okay.
are going to make a determination on where
Sure.
resources
Do
are
I think there are going to
allocated.
be people who do administrative duties? Sure.
Yeah,
Is
those
that what we're
people are always
saying?
going to have a higher prestige than the laborers.
I don't think that's class.
That's definitely class.
That's definitely
It's not
class.
class.
Then why are
Making decisions is not class.
if you have authority?
Authority is not class.
No.
No.
Oh, okay. So then, would you say that you have the same amount of class hierarchy as the president?
No.
Why?
Well, that's not class though. Like me and the president, those aren't class determinations.
Yes,
those
they
are
are.
authority determinations.
They are
When
class
we're talking
determinations.
about class,
Then why did you just say that you don't have the same class hierarchy as him?
I'm sorry if I misspoke. I just want to make sure that we're understanding the delineation between class. So, yes, I do think there is a ruling class, and then there is a working class.
So in the hierarchy, where is the president to you?
It's a good question. I mean, I would say the president is essentially a part of the state, which is kind of an authoritative arm of the ruling class.
So he's higher in the hierarchy than you?
Yeah, he's an authoritative arm, sure.
Yeah. So can you give me examples of people who have authority who aren't higher in the hierarchy than you?
Of people who have authority? What do you mean?
There you go. Now she started asking questions. Do you want to be in the defense in the offense now? Let's see if Andrew can catch. Let's see if Andrew can catch that.
Who is in a position of authority over, in, at least as far as a government body goes, who aren't in a higher hierarchy than you. They're not higher than you are.
I mean, I guess it would depend on what sect we're talking about.
Like any sect. If they have authority, necessarily they're going to be higher.
What I'm saying is when it comes to authority, it's
you.
not necessarily central to the idea of class. Like obviously the ruling class, like do you think that people who own property have like what you would call legal authority?
What?
Yeah.
Over people who don't have property?
No. So you would have legal authority on your property.
Sure, but I would say that having property or having capital gives you a specific type of authority that's different than, say, a structural presidential authority.
It still gives you authority. My whole point is authority. So if I have vast amounts of property that people live on, right?
I know. Andrew gets a kick off, and just dealing with these witches, man. But the way he loved this, he loved just really disseminating all this bad faith stuff, man. But incredible, bro. The president of the United States is not in a different class. He just in the same class that I am, I guess. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you next one.